Every so often you'll look in the comments section and you'll hear this one question. How do I get my JW family to wake up? What do I say to them? Tough one to answer, because what wakes one person up isn't what woke another person up. Generally, I found that time away from that constant bombardment of BS does a great deal to wake people up. And that's something I want to get into, so let's get to it. How you doing, guys? Does anybody remember the very first meeting that they missed? No particular reason, but you just got up one day and realized you just didn't want to go. You felt fine, but you needed some time away from the normal routine. This is something we all need. Whether it's from a group of friends or work, we all need our own space. This doesn't work in a cult, because that first meeting that you miss, it never fails. You could be at home, the phone will ring, and if not, the very next meeting you go to, somebody will point out that you were not at the last meeting. Now, somebody will walk up to you, somebody that you don't even speak to on a regular basis, will say, I missed you at the meeting last week. Oh, were you shooting at me? Never fails, but they always point it out. But the one thing JWs do realize is that when you miss one meeting, it makes it easier to miss another, and another, and another. I was only in for a couple of years before I got that bug that I just needed some space away. I was talking to one of the guys, and we were talking before the meeting, and he said to me, I need a break from this. And I said, yeah, I understand that. Well, he took a break from it, and to the best of my knowledge, he never came back. That was my problem. I would go, and then I would come back. Looking at hindsight, I would have done it totally differently today. When I walked away the first time, I should have just kept on going. I was talking to one JW about the ministry school one day. Now, I always had this thing. I was very picky, especially when I did the number 4 talk, which later was the number 3 talk. I didn't like to use too many of the same words in the talk. And we were talking about that, and I says, yeah, I kind of like to mix up wording because it gets a little bit too redundant. And he says to me, well, it's all about repetition. Well, it was obvious to me we were talking about two totally different things, and he wasn't grasping what I was saying. Later on, I started realizing what he was saying. It's all about repetition. As the next year went on, I started realizing just how repetitious these meetings were. I was able to sit back and watch it. It's like, wow, the information is virtually the same. Although dressed up differently, it was all the same. It was about 2010, 2011, I started mixing up meetings, and on occasion I wouldn't go to the midweek meeting, or I wouldn't go to the Sunday meeting, and it was always brought up. I was always good about avoiding too much conversation. My last few years in, just to avoid the JWs, I was maintaining 2 different addresses and several different phones just so I could avoid them because I needed some space. Because the more space you tried to get, the more smothering they would get. They bombard you with this. Oh, you got to get back to the meetings. Personal space is something that just does not happen at the Kingdom Halls. But as far as what wakes people up, now, at the time I started fading, I didn't know much about the inner workings with the crimes of the organization. That came after. But the thing is, once you start to question, and you see the first thing, it leaves you wide open to see everything else that Watchtower wanted to keep from you. This is why JW's pushed to the hilt. You've got to go through life with blinders on. No, do you ever try to cross a busy street with blinders on? It doesn't work too well. But they knew this, and this is how they were trained, this is how they were indoctrinated, to keep you blind and keep that bombardment of constant information going. As far as what will wake the JWs up, it's obvious that Watchtower is switching to an online religion. As a matter of fact, Kim and Mikey have been saying that for quite a few years, and as I recall, they were taking a lot of heat because of it. But looking at what's going on now, yes, they are becoming an online religion. And I just lost my train of thought. Although they did take a lot of heat for it, yes, they are. The problem was, how do they do it? Now, when JW Broadcasting first came out, that was the first clue that they were switching to an online religion. Now, we had 5 meetings per week. We had 3 assemblies and conventions a year. Why did we need JW Broadcasting? I was never a big fan of it. I mean, the meetings were enough. We had all this literature, but it was obviously they were making the switch then. And they probably didn't know how they were going to make the switch and not be noticed. Comes 2020, the COVID pandemic. They took full advantage of that. Now, many JWs are probably waiting for the day that they'll be going back to their kingdom halls, but many are starting to realize that is not going to happen. Watchtower took full advantage of the pandemic by switching to the Zoom meetings. And this is going to continue, and they full well know this. And many JWs deep in their mind are probably thinking, I didn't sign up for this. I mean, anybody can sit home and watch a screen, but it's not like actually being there. When I started seeing JW Broadcasting, it was more of the same redundant BS that we were getting at the meetings. But watching these guys, you realize that these guys were nothing but a bunch of bulging jizz pixies.
Jehovah can burn to the ground. All the murmurers murmur. Murmurers murmur. All the murmurers murmur. Murmurers murmur. Repulsive. Jehovah separates close friends. Repulsive. Jehovah, we've had enough of you. Jehovah, murmuring.
At first, I'm sure that when the Zoom meetings first started, the JWs were all gung-ho about it. They'd get dressed up to watch the meetings on a screen. But as time went on, how many of them just said, what's the point of getting dressed up? We're watching it on a screen. Well, one thing that JW.org has not taken into consideration is that this could be the space that wakes up JWs. Because more often than not, when you stop dressing up, there's going to come the day, well, I've got things to do. We can catch the meeting later, and they just don't tune into it. This is the problem with online. You don't have to actually watch it at that point in time. I'm not even sure how the memorial went because I've been kind of out of the loop of late. I've been working a lot of hours this past couple of months, so I don't know. I didn't see any invitations go out. I didn't see any JWs, and I got no information on the memorial this year. But as time goes on and the JWs start taking away space back and they start realizing how many JWs did you know used to come down on the televangelists? I've heard more conversation about things like the 700 Club over the years, and yet, how is JW Broadcasting any different than the 700 Club? Their intros, their interviews, all the array of BS is virtually the same, except for the most part, the televangelists are a lot better at it than JW.org, because let's face it, the guys at the headquarters just have no charisma whatsoever. So as time goes on, and the JWs start to take a back seat, to take a step away when they realize that they're never going to do the door-to-door work again. Letter writing campaigns are complete bullshit because I guarantee those letters are going right in the trash. And I don't even know if they're ever going to do the court witnessing again. This may be the space that the Jehovah's Witnesses need. And 2021 may be that space they need for the Great Awakening. Because let's face it, as the years go by, more and more of Jehovah's Witnesses are walking away from it because they're realizing that everything about it is false. Their teachings, their constant array of changing teachings. The other thing, making the vaccine a conscience matter may have woken quite a few up, but as time goes on and they realize This is not the religion I grew up with. How many hardcore JWs do you know that would actually go for this? How many of them went to their graves, would be rolling in their graves if they saw any of this? See, while other places of worship are taking precautions and they're all still meeting, Jehovah's Witnesses are now reduced to watching their meetings on a screen. So if anybody has any family in, be patient. This may be the year that wakes up many JWs. Because the thing is, when you step away long enough and you start listening again and you realize you're hearing it totally, totally differently. Anyways, guys, I'd love to hear your comments. I've got to head off to work. I got a very long day. I will catch you during the week. You guys have a good day.